Connections Radio presents.
Welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. And on this edition of Vegas Hockey Hub, we are going to be doing another edition of Player Profile. And this time we are going to be discussing and kind of analyzing a top prospect in the Vegas Golden Knights system. And we're talking about defenseman Lukas Cormier. So Lukas Cormier, he is currently with the Henderson Silver Knights in the AHL. And according to NHL.com and looking at the prospect rankings of the NHL, Lukas Cormier is one of the top prospects on your Vegas Golden Knights systems. And a matter of fact, if you want to go back to our video we did back in September at the beginning of the season, when we did our prospect watch, our first one of the year, I said that our best prospect was Lukas Cormier, that I had him ranked at number 1 in our prospect rankings, doing our prospect systems and breakdown and analysis of it. I had him ranked as number 1. So as we are here right now on Vegas Hockey Hub, I wanted to just sit down and do a player profile on our top prospect the Vegas Golden Knights have, and one of the best prospects the Golden Knights have in their system in Lukas Cormier, here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. Also check out all the shows we have on the network on PRConnectionsRadio.com, and subscribe and like this video on our YouTube channel at PR Connections. Go to our social medias as well at Vegas Hockey Hub on all social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. We are everywhere on social media, and follow your host at Ian J. Rachiele. So where we begin when it comes to Lukas Cormier, when it comes to really telling you what you need to know about him, we're going to have to go all the way back to the beginning to kind of set this up and tell you about him. Now, Lukas Cormier, he was drafted 68th overall in the 2020 NHL entry draft. He came from the Charlottetown Islanders of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. And when Lukas Cormier got drafted, there was some hype around it because Vegas Golden Knights, when they drafted him in the 3rd round, there was some speculation that the Golden Knights actually got a steal here with Lukas Cormier. He was someone who did relatively well in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. We'll talk about that and break it down here on the show in more detail. But yeah, Lukas Cormier, when he was playing for the Charlottetown Islanders, he was making a name for himself. I mean, this is somebody who, over the span of time, was really establishing himself and becoming one of the best players in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. It just to really kind of set this up and kind of go back into time. He spent 4 seasons with the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. He spent 4 seasons with the Islanders. And his first season in 2018-2019, he played in 63 games, had 15 goals, 21 assists, and 46 penalty minutes in his first season playing in Charlottetown. It's also the same 2018-2019 where his team would make it to the President's Cup and make it to the 2019 playoffs. Unfortunately for Charlottetown, they would lose to Cape Breton 4-2 in the quarterfinals. So it wasn't that great of a season for Charlottetown, but he did relatively well in his debut season. And he also scored 5 points in his first playoff series for Charlottetown. So Lukas Cormier starts out with a bang, has a stellar debut season, his rookie season in the Junior Hockey League. Then year 2, his team would be no playoffs. Unfortunately, due to COVID, the regular season would be suspended. The playoffs would be suspended, which is very unfortunate because the Charlottetown Islanders would have actually made the playoffs if it would have actually happened in that time period. But in that shortened season, in 44 games, he had 6 goals and 30 assists for Charlottetown. So he actually had the same amount of points as the year before, but he played in 19 less games. So it really showed that the impact and the progression that Lukas Cormier had in his junior hockey career was really starting to grow. Now, because of that and the fact that he had 72 points in 2 seasons, Lukas Cormier, he would actually be in the CHL, which is the Canadian Hockey League, top prospect game. In this 2020 top prospects game, there was so much talent that was in this prospect game. I'm not going to go through every single player because, man, I'd be here forever. But this 2020 CHL prospects game, the red team versus white team, the game roster has a lot of notable talent in this game. Just for example, I'm just going to go over a few names that you may know or may have heard of when it comes to the Canadian Hockey League 2020 top prospects game that Lukas Cormier was a part of. Now, you had Justin Barron, who plays out there for the Montreal Canadiens. He was out there playing for Halifax. He was one of the defensemen that was in the game. You had Jamie Drysdale, who, Anaheim Duck, for a top pick by the Erie Otters. Anaheim Ducks, they drafted him pretty high. He was in this game as well. You also had Braden Schneider, who came from the Brandon Wheat Kings. He is now with the New York Rangers, a son of a former NHLer when it comes to that situation. And you also had Quinton Byfield. You also had some guys that were going to be first-round picks like Seth Jarvis. You had the top prospect from the draft that year in Alexis Lafreniere. And you had Dawson Mercer, who has done pretty solid for himself in the New Jersey Devils system. So much talent came from this CHL top prospects game, and Lukas Cormier was part of that game. So, really stopping and looking at that, it was a really good benchmark for him. The fact that he was part of the top prospects game, the fact that he was named to the all-rookie team in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, that he was setting up for success, 72 points in his first 2 seasons playing junior hockey. But this would not be the end for Lukas Cormier, because Lukas Cormier, his next 2 seasons playing in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, he would make a statement, and oh yes, he would, as in the 2020-2021 season, he would have 16 goals, 54 points in just 39 games. I mean, it's crazy to think about that he averaged about 1.5 per game in his 3rd season in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. He did really solid for Charlottetown in that season. Charlottetown would go on to the playoffs that year and play in the President's Cup. And the Charlottetown Islanders would actually move on to the semifinals, and where they would lose to Victoriaville in the semifinals. So you have the Charlottetown Islanders who made it to the semifinals that year, thanks to Lukas Cormier and doing what he was doing that season. Now, because he had a breakout season, because he was averaging 1.5 per game in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, Lukas Cormier would win the league's best defenseman award. He would be named to the all Quebec Major Junior League first team, and he actually would help, like I said, the Islanders make it to the to pretty much make it to the semifinals in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. And I just want to mention very quickly who those players were that were on the All-Star team alongside him, because I already mentioned Dawson Mercer, who plays for the New Jersey Devils right now. And then you had Jordan Spence, who is a defenseman for the LA Kings. So you had 2 up-and-coming NHLers on that first All-Star team alongside Lukas Cormier. So I really look at that as an accomplishment and really a statement to how of a breakout year he had with the Charlottetown Islanders. And then him winning the Defenseman of the Year in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, the fact that it went to him, it's actually a very good accomplishment when you realize who has won that trophy before. People who have won that trophy are like Hall of Famers Ray Bourque, Ray Bourque, he won that award back in the 70s. You've also had really established defensemen who have won that award in the past, like, for example, Keith Yandle and Chris Letang and David Savard. Like, there are some really good, solid defensemen who have won that in the past. So it's an accomplishment to win that trophy. But you know what's even crazier than that? That Lukas Cormier would do it again. Not only in his fourth and final season playing for the Charlottetown Islanders, he would average over 1.5 points per game once again, but he would win Defenseman of the Year again. He would be on the All-Star first team again. But what was different for Lukas Cormier for the 2021-2022 season while playing for the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League is that he would get the Charlottetown Islanders all the way to the championship for the President's Cup, where they would lose in 5 games. So for the first time in those 4 years, he would elevate the Islanders and get them to the championship game for the President's Cup. And I mentioned before how he had 5 points in his first series in the playoffs. He had 9 points in his second trip to the playoffs. Hey, check this out. In just 15 playoff games, Lukas Cormier had 8 goals and 21 points in the President's Cup playoffs. So what a great job by Lukas Cormier to establish himself and set him up as a great player in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. And you also have to stop and analyze as well that this season, his fourth and final season playing in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, was exceptional for him. In 62 games, he had 33 goals. No, not 33 points, 33 goals as a defenseman. Lukas Cormier would have 81 points in 62 games. He would have 60 penalty minutes in 62 games. So not only did he average over 1 point per game, but he averaged just a little bit under a penalty minute per game in his final season in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. And also, because he won the Defenseman of the Year in back-to-back seasons, he would actually make history in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, as he would become the first person to ever do that. He would be the first defenseman to ever win the Defenseman of the Year back-to-back seasons in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, really just establishing himself and really setting himself up for success in the future. So that was really good for him, the fact that he won that. And then he was on the all-first team in 2022 alongside guys like Patrick Gay, who was his teammate with the Charlottetown Islanders and a future teammate with the Henderson Silver Knights as of today. So really stopping and analyzing that, the Charlottetown Islanders had a really successful 2022-2023 season. In fact, Patrick Gay, because he was on the all-first team with the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, that actually helped him get drafted by the Vegas Golden Knights in the 2023 NHL draft. So that was definitely cool there to really see that Patrick Gay actually got drafted, was on the same team as Lukas Cormier in juniors. So by the way, I just want to point this out because this really was cool to really see. Lukas Cormier's stats in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League before we move on to his pro career: 70 goals, 207 points, and 170 penalty minutes. He essentially averaged a little under 1 point per game in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. So really a stand-up job, a great accomplishment by Lukas Cormier. And even if you want to include his playoff stats, he had 35 points in the playoffs. So just a stand-up job and really a round of applause for what Lukas Cormier would do when it came to his time in juniors. Now, right here, and this is kind of a snapshot, unfortunately, I had to kind of cut it. This was Lukas Cormier's draft analysis. And I'm going to try to make this a little bit bigger just so you can see it. But Lukas Cormier, his draft grade was a 5 for skating, was a 6.5 for shooting, 6 for passing, 6 for puck handling, 5 for hockey sense, and only 4 for physical. But what mattered for Lukas Cormier was that he had a B grade heading into 2020 NHL draft. And because he had a B grade, it was speculation on where he would go. Who would he go to in the 2020 NHL draft? Well, in the third round, 68 overall, Lukas Cormier would go to your Vegas Golden Knights. And we kind of covered this a little bit in the beginning. But the fact that he went in the third round is actually really cool when you consider who was drafted around that same time. Because there's actually been some players in the third round that have actually done a little bit of good at this point in the NHL. For example, there's 2 players who came from that same 2020 NHL draft in the third round. The first player that you have to mention is Nico Daws. Nico Daws is a goaltender with the New Jersey Devils. He has actually been spending some good time in the AHL with the Utica Comets. But the good news for him is he actually has played a good amount of games in the NHL at this point in time. So Nico Daws, he was a third-round pick alongside the same round as Lukas Cormier. And you had Alex Laferriere, who was a winger for the LA Kings, and he has actually become a solid member of the Los Angeles Kings today on their roster. So you get drafted. You know what? It happens. What else are you going to do? What else are you going to do once you've gotten drafted, once you have been put in to professional hockey? What are you going to do then? Well, in that summer, he actually would join Team Canada. So in 2022, at the World Juniors, after his fantastic 4-year career in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, Lukas Cormier would join Team Canada and play in the 2022 World Juniors. And what he would actually do was really good for Team Canada, as in those World Junior Championships, he would help Team Canada win the gold medal. And in the meantime, he would score a goal and 4 assists in those 7 games while helping Canada win team gold. So just to really recap and examine Lukas Cormier up to this point, think about what he has accomplished at a young age. 2-time All-Star team in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. 2-time Defenseman of the Year in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. Was part of the CHL Top Prospects game and was on Team Canada and helped them win a gold medal in the World Juniors. So to say that Lukas Cormier has had a successful junior career would be a massive understatement. He had a fantastic junior career. And the only thing you have to worry about is that when you go from juniors to pro, how are you going to progress? How are you going to elevate your game and get you to the next level? Well, Lukas Cormier would make the jump to pro hockey. He would join the Henderson Silver Knights to begin the 2022-2023 season. And this was a good move for him because, you have accomplished everything you could do on that side. Now you're going to go to junior hockey. You've gotten past that. Now you are in the real deal. Now you are in minor league hockey, the grind, everything you're going to have to do to progress, to get better, and to eventually join the NHL someday. So Lukas Cormier would be with the Henderson Silver Knights, would be with them in training camp, and he would earn that roster spot and be on the Silver Knights roster to begin the 2022-2023 season. And as Lukas Cormier would begin and actually play for the Henderson Silver Knights in 2022, he would play in 62 games that season for the Henderson Silver Knights, and he actually had a very respectable debut season with the Henderson Silver Knights. As in 62 games, he had 10 goals, 25 assists, and 44 penalty minutes in his debut season. Now, the Henderson Silver Knights in 2022, 2023, they did not make the playoffs. In fact, they actually finished eight games under 500 in the AHL that year. But Lukas Cormier was a bright spot. And oh, yes, he was a bright spot on that Henderson Silver Knights team. I went to a couple of games last year. I got to see him in action. And the way he was skating around, the way he had the puck on his stick, he was someone who you noticed when it came to the Henderson Silver Knights. And when you really stop and analyze what the games were for the Henderson Silver Knights, Lukas Cormier played in 62 out of 70 games that year. It's also the same Lukas Cormier who actually finished seventh in goals on the Henderson Silver Knights team. In his debut season while playing for the Henderson Silver Knights, he finished fourth in assists. And when it came to points, he finished fifth among all players on the Henderson Silver Knights. So really overall, when you stop and analyze Lukas Cormier debut season in Henderson, the fact that he was putting up these numbers and doing very successful in the AHL in his debut season, it was commendable. It was recognizable what he was doing with Lukas Cormier, and we all liked what we saw from him moving forward with the Henderson Silver Knights. So after year one, after he had, 35 points in 62 games, something interesting would happen with Lukas Cormier. As Lukas Cormier, while playing for the Henderson Silver Knights, while being suited up for them, he would get called up by Vegas for the first time ever in his career. As in April 19th, 2023, he would be recalled to Vegas. Now, a disclaimer is that he never played. He never suited up. He was never on the ice for them. But what he did is that for the rest of the season and for the playoffs in the Stanley Cup, Lukas Cormier was with the team. Lukas Cormier was with the organization. He was with the team during the entire Stanley Cup playoff run. In fact, you could see him taking photos, and actually you could see him with the organization when they were raising the Stanley Cup. In fact, there's a photo of him and a couple of the Silver Knights players. Of course, there's beer and alcohol and all of that. But you see Lukas Cormier in the locker room celebrating with every member of the Vegas Golden Knights. So Lukas Cormier did get some experience and was on that playoff roster, just not as suiting up for them, but he was on the playoff roster in the 2023 Stanley Cup playoffs. And that's very valuable for a young player. It is very important for a young player to experience playoff hockey, to be there and to really kind of soak it all in when you're a young guy like Lukas Cormier was. And the fact that he was only 21 years old when the Vegas Golden Knights went to the Stanley Cup Finals. He was only 21 years old when he's sitting at T-Mobile Arena and he's actually watching the Vegas Golden Knights win a Stanley Cup. So after Lukas Cormier has that experience with the playoffs, he would actually play. He actually would play in preseason for the Vegas Golden Knights. He would suit up for the prospects game. He would do all of this stuff with the Golden Knights organization in the 2023 preseason. And he actually did very well in the preseason for the Vegas Golden Knights. In fact, the preseason stats on Lukas Cormier was very promising as a defenseman. And this is somebody who actually made the cuts late in. So actually, Lukas Cormier stayed around for a while in terms of the preseason. He wasn't just cut right away, which was a good tell and actually was a good sign for Lukas Cormier. The fact that he wasn't cut right away when they were doing their cuts in the preseason. He stayed around for a while. He was with the organization, and he was actually one of the final cuts that the Vegas Golden Knights did at that point. In fact, they actually sent him down to the minors on, I think it was either like the first day of October or it was the final day of September. But no, he was part of the final cuts when it came to the Vegas Golden Knights preseason. So Lukas Cormier would actually still be playing in Henderson. In fact, he's playing in Henderson today as of right now. But what was very important about Lukas Cormier is that heading into this season, he would be named one of the top prospects in the Golden Knights organization. Because if you look at the list of prospects, you saw Pavel Dorofeev, you saw Matthew Chatterford, you saw David Edstrom, but Lukas Cormier being on that list just kind of reconfirmed how Lukas Cormier has progressed with the Vegas Golden Knights. He has really shown that he has taken off and really has become a stellar player in minor league, just as he did in juniors. And he has a good chance of being a future defensive pairing with the Vegas Golden Knights someday. And speaking of that, by the way, speaking of him potentially having the future of being in the NHL, on January 4th, 2024, Lukas Cormier would finally get the call and finally get to suit up and play his first ever game in the NHL. Now, this is a moment that if you're a kid in hockey, if you're someone who loves hockey, if you're someone who grew up and ate hockey, this is a moment that you've wanted your entire life. So just imagine Lukas Cormier, you take your rookie lap against the New York Islanders, and you're playing in your first ever game in the National Hockey League. But also, could you imagine if you scored a point in your first professional game? Well, that's exactly what Lukas Cormier did, as he had an assist on the goal from Jack Eichel late in the game. So Lukas Cormier, he only had a small cup of coffee, only played 2 games this season with your Vegas Golden Knights. But Lukas Cormier had an impactful 2 games and even registered a point in his NHL debut. So overall, Lukas Cormier, I appreciate what he has done over the past 2 seasons. He has a bright future ahead of him. And to kind of wrap this up, Lukas Cormier's stats with the Henderson Silver Knights, he has 13 goals, 39 assists for 52 points. He has a little over 70 penalty minutes in 99 games while playing for the Henderson Silver Knights. Now, what's funny enough about Lukas Cormier is that their upcoming game, and this is funny, their upcoming game against the Ontario region will be his 100th game in the AHL. And if you really factor in his NHL games, he is actually at 101 games with the Golden Knights organization, 99 with the Silver Knights, 2 with the Golden Knights. So this was your player profile on Lukas Cormier here on Vegas Hockey Hub. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. And until next time, continue watching hockey, go support junior hockey, and go Knights, go.